right, what is going on? As you all know, we are lounging today on President's Day for some coffee and comics. And I actually forgot my coffee upstairs, but that's okay. It's almost gone anyway. For some coffee. And I'm really hyped to be here with you guys. It's awesome. So before we get started, before we start lounging with each other and talking comics, you know what we got to do.
The Avengers. That's what we call ourselves. Earth's mightiest heroes.
I have an army.
We have a Hulk.
So that is actually one of the very last times that logo will ever play on this channel, because we actually have a brand new logo. Before we get involved in anything, you know that we're going to start talking comics. You know that we're going to talk about some mail calls. You know that we're going to be talking about some spec books. But I also want to talk about some really cool stuff. So there's 6 times where a president has been involved in a comic. And it all has been kind of interesting. There's been supervillain presidents. There's been just kind of cover appearances and meet and greets. And there was actually some presidents at the death of Superman. So, yes, Mark, I am talking DC on my channel within the first 2 minutes. Don't have a heart attack. So let's talk about those 6 times where we got to see some really awesome presidents in some really cool comics. The first time that we ever saw, or not the first time, but one of the coolest appearances that we were able to get a president appearance inside a comic was back in DC Special number 29, The Untold Origin of the Justice Society. And on the cover, you see Hitler with a bomb with the Nazi symbol on it, the swastika, and Superman just punching the bomb out of the way, Hitler being as mad as can be. And the reason for all of this was because of FDR. So the first superhero team in comics, the Justice Society of America, was brought together by a number of national people, but FDR was kind of one of their reasons for all of that coming to fruition, which was actually really cool to see. So you had Sheldon Mayer, writer Gardner Fox, and artist Everett Hibbard, who put them on the page for the first time in the winter of 1940-1941 in All-Star Comics number 3. And in that issue, the team, the Justice Society of America, was actually already assembled. So we never really got to see a true origin of what was going on. But we do know that in 1940, Franklin Delano Roosevelt was the president. So in 1977, the DC Universe had their special number 29, where the team got their origin with Franklin Delano Roosevelt playing a key role on panel role, putting into motion the mission that kind of got the heroes together. And I mean, that would just be awesome to see if we could see something like that in the DCEU. It'd be kind of cool to see a president getting superheroes together, kind of battling it out, creating a superhero society. So then after that, number 2 on this list, the All-Winner Squad saves a young JFK. So this is from What If, number 4, also from 1977. So 1977 was a good year for presidents in comics. Marvel's 1940s counterpart to the Justice Society of America was the All-Winner Squad. They made their debut in 1946, as we all know. They were only in 2 issues, but later on, we actually were able to see their appearance be popular enough to come back. So originally in 1969, we saw in Avengers 71, the World War II All-Winner Squad, who went by the name The Invaders. And then again, they came up in what was called, what if the invaders had stayed together after World War II? What would that have looked like? So again, they go on to actually be a part of, they actually went on and had Harry Truman as part of their scene. And then on top of that, at one point, they saved 30-year-old congressional candidate John F. Kennedy. Number 3 on this list is Ronald Reagan. So Ronald Reagan was in a Batman comic book back in 1986, and it was The Dark Knight Returns number 3. And 1986 actually was a pretty big year for presidents in DC Comics. In addition to Nixon and Watchmen, Reagan made significant appearances in Dark Knight Returns and Legends, in a Legends crossover series that ran from 86 to 87, and Reagan appeared in several scenes as the country is gripped in an anti-hero hysteria stoked by agents of the villainous dark side. Before I go any further, I do want to thank the Saturday Evening Post for putting this list together. I was looking for some stuff to talk about this morning, found this. I love the detail that they gave. So obviously I'm given a short snapshot of the top 6. They actually have a top 7. But I wanted to keep it to top 6, keep it kind of old school comic-esque, and go from there. Number 4 on my list is when we see Richard Nixon, the supervillain. So we all know Richard Nixon. We all know the Watergate scandal. We all know a lot about him through that. But in Captain America and Falcon, number 175 from 1974, so actually before we saw FDR and JFK in the 70s, we also get to see in 1974, even before Superman and Justice Society of America in 1977, we see during the Secret Empire story that Captain America and his allies took on an organization. Took on the organization, and the battle took Captain America and the Falcon all the way to the Oval Office inside the White House, where he confronted the Empire's leader, number 1, though we never, and I'm quoting here, though we never see his face, everything about the scene and dialogue tells us that the villain of the piece is really President Richard Nixon. Nixon then takes his own life. And it's actually kind of interesting the way that they portray this in the comic. You can see the different stuff going on in here. And you can also see Nixon say, "I gambled on a coup to gain me the power I craved, and it appeared that my gamble has finally failed. I'll cash my chips then." And Captain America obviously trying to save him. Doesn't, is what it is. And Steve Englehart compared the unfolding of the Watergate drama of the time to America living in its own version of a political thriller. He said, and I quote, "I decided to do a story that paralleled the real story with no set idea of where it would end up because we Americans had no set idea of where the real story would end up." Very interesting way of handling a very interesting time in our nation's history. Number 5 on this list, and I know we're about 10 minutes in. I love everyone who's watching right now. I see you guys. Leave us a comment. Let us know that you're watching. Number 5 on this list is the Clintons attend the funeral of a friend. So Funeral for a Friend was one of the parts of the Death of Superman saga, that 3-part miniseries. This is from the Superman Man of Steel number 20 from 1993. We know that this is what was kind of played on in Batman vs. Superman, that whole Death of Superman storyline with Doomsday. And this is following his death. You see Shazam, Wonder Woman, Supergirl, Flash, Green Lantern, Batman, Robin, and a few other characters. Looks like Aquaman, Nightwing, all on the cover. And in this one, you see Bill and Hillary Clinton. So they actually end up showing up a few different times in the 90s. But their most important, most famous kind of scene is when they show up at the death of the Superman of the death of Superman funeral, and they actually at the massive funeral that takes place in Metropolis in issue 20, the Clintons appear to talk about his legacy and talk about where it's all going to go from here, what's going to happen. And by the end of the story, Superman is able to return, and we're certain the Clintons were delighted. They spent a couple panels just kind of talking about it. And now for one of my favorite all-time covers and just downright interesting ways to incorporate a president into a comic. So we all know this president because he is one of our most recent presidents. And he's also famous for a lot of really cool reasons. One of the reasons why he is so famous, why he is so cool, is because he actually spoke to the younger generations in a way that a lot of other presidents hadn't. And it was interesting to see how he kind of talked about the different things that he was into, and that allowed us to see the ways that he loved these things. So, of course, I'm talking about Amazing Spider-Man number 583 from 2009, when Mr. President Barack Obama shows up on the cover of Amazing Spider-Man. This issue was so hot that it sold out and was on its third printing, getting ready for its third printing within 24 hours of its release. So that's phenomenal. That's amazing. It's not something that gets replicated often. And we saw our first African-American president on a cover of a comic, which was amazing to begin with, but also having the United States' first African-American president, period, was amazing. And it was his popularity with the younger voters that really wanted Marvel to put him on their comic. It wasn't his only time that he was in or on a comic after his election, but his popularity stemmed from the fact that he was so legitimately into comics himself. And he actually spoke about this on NPR, where he talked about that his favorites growing up were Marvel's Spider-Man and Conan the Barbarian. And it was only a matter of time before they would eventually get Spider-Man and Obama together to be in the same panel. And that happened in January of 2009. It was really cool. I really want to add that comic book to my collection. I'm not sure how much it's worth or what it's going for now, but I'm definitely going to look it up. As soon as I read this, I was like, that's another book I want to add to my collection. Pieces of history. I love these little tiny pieces of history that we get to see within comics. One of the biggest comics I want to add to my collection is the 2001 issue of Amazing Spider-Man right after 9/11. It's a really cool blacked out cover. I love what Marvel did with it. It's a really great callback to the just blank reaction that a lot of us had on that day. I don't know where you might have been, but I remember being in my fourth grade classroom, all of the teachers getting called out of the room and saying basically there's going to be a letter sent home to parents and something happened, but we can't really talk about it because we were 8. I mean, genuinely, a lot of us were 8 or 9 years old at the time. We didn't really get it. So that's neither here nor there. It's amazing to see how Marvel uses these events in history within their comics in a bright way, not something to kind of drag down the tone or to sell comics or anything like that. Obviously, having Obama on the cover sold a lot of comics. It was amazing that it got to its third printing and was rushed to its third printing within the first 24 hours. But it's kind of interesting. And obviously, Marvel doesn't see a dime from these comics ever going for above asking price. I mean, if they sell a comic to a local comic shop for, let's say, $1, and the comic shop sells it for $30, that's $29 in profit to the comic shop. It's not. The amazing part about comics is that you see a lot of the value on the back end. Obviously, Marvel could keep a bunch of these for themselves, later on sell them down the line and make a ton of money, but at the same time, it's cool that we see them using their platform to support these different ideas. Just like how we talked about the Nixon comic. Lastly, so that is the 6. We also ended up seeing so we also saw Obama covered in 2 comic style biographies at that point. And we'll go on to have multiple appearances of comics including Savage Dragon, Youngblood, Batman, The Brave and the Bold animated, and many, many more. And honestly, I think it was just really awesome to have him in any comics because it kind of spoke to how wonderful, how wonderful it was to see that. Now, I'm going to get into my mail call. Before I do anything else, I want to talk about the books that I picked up last week, the books that are in my mail call, and then we'll get into what I'm looking forward to and some spec on Thor, Love, and Thunder. So this spec you might have already heard. You might have already seen different people talking about it. But I want to add my own little take on it. So, without further ado, let's get into what books I picked up last week. First book I picked up last week. Oh, by the way, shout out to Cray Cray for Comics. Just how I love to start my Monday. I don't know who that is. He, she, I'm not sure. They were here before we even went live. It was awesome to see you here. And it's awesome to still see. We've got 3 watchers right now. The book that I've been following since issue 1 that I'm only actually missing 1 issue for is Amazing Spider-Man 59. So those of you who know me, I absolutely loved playing the Spider-Man PS4 game. Mr. Negative was an awesome villain in that. And this cover is just so interesting. I cannot wait to read it. That was one of my pickups from this week. I showed these 2 off yesterday on Legion of Comics live stream. This is one that was in my wife's wonderful pull box, DC Love is a Battlefield, and it's supposed to basically be a comic about Poison and Harley and a Valentine's Day book where they, from what he described, they make a death pact, I guess, and kind of go through the different ways that plays out. I also picked up for my wife Harley Quinn Future State #2. Again, another really cool cover. All of this Future State stuff has had really awesome covers. I've been very impressed with how it's turning out. Sorry, I'm trying to find the other Future State stuff that I've been looking at. Here we go. Flash issue #1 from Future State. This cover was beautiful. Love the vibe of it. It's definitely very interesting. And I'm not sure that I have Flash issue 2 out right now. But anyways, no big deal. That's neither here nor there. That is just something that's awesome. Yes, Cray Cray, we will be getting into Spec very, very soon. But again, want to talk about some cool stuff that came out. This book I picked up mainly for the cover. again, for those of you who know me, I'm a huge fan of Thanos. And Thanos vs. Icarus in Eternals #2, I just had to pick up. I loved reading the first Eternals. I'm not going to give away any spoilers on that because I want you guys to be able to read it before the movie comes out. I don't want to ruin your reading experience by giving away spoilers on books that I'm not planning to spoil. If I'm planning to spoil something, I'll put it up in the title right up here. And that's usually how I end up spoiling things, by letting you know that I'm going to spoil things. These books I have not read yet. I still have a few more to get caught up with The King in Black. But pretty much all of the King in Black stuff has been very interesting, pretty amazing. I love the way that this cover looks. The ominous look that we can't even see Black Panther's face in this one is really cool. It's completely blacked out, and as you can tell, he's fighting off some symbiotes, and I don't believe that we've actually seen symbiotes that look similar to this. It's almost like Null has sent the big and the bad to fight Black Panther because they know how strong he is. So again, you can take one quick look at that. Check out those symbiotes. I love the cosmic background of all of this. So we haven't really seen those symbiotes walking around in the original starter issues of all of this. So this should be very, very interesting, the way that they play this out. So here's just some of the artwork. Again, not going to spoil anything, but I mean, this artwork is beautiful. This is the variant edition of this. I will say that, so it's not truly issue #1. Issue #1's cover, but I definitely like that cover the best. So I picked that one up. And then I also picked up Thunderbolts #2. Thunderbolts #1 for this series was phenomenal. So you've got Taskmaster on there. You've got Wolverine on there. It should be a very interesting, no doubt, fun book to read. And I can't wait to dive into it. It's definitely awesome that we have this vibe of just downright awesome BA characters all put together by Wilson Fisk. So as we know, at this stage of the game, Wilson Fisk is the mayor of New York City, and he's put together the Thunderbolts in this scenario. Obviously not the true starter, the true origin of Thunderbolts, but it is what it is. So he put together the team of Star, Taskmaster, Mr. Fear, and Batroc. I hope I'm saying that right. Their mission to save the Earth from Null and get rich or die trying. The new team set off for Ravencroft to find the man with a plan to save them all, Norman Osborn. Along the way, they lost a few Thunderbolts to death and desertion, and when the final four made it to the Institute, their faith in the mission weakened when a very peculiar Norman answered the front door. So can't wait to dive head on into that book and get caught up on all things King in Black before we get to see the God of Light on Wednesday. That issue, with how hype I am for it, will probably have some spoilers involved. I wish I could say that there won't be any. I'm going to try my best to not give anything away. But if I let something slip, I can't say that it's going to be my fault. It will be, but it won't be, if that makes sense. The last one that I picked up, and I believe that this may be a one-shot. Let me just check real quick. Yep, one shot by Marvel, and it's not a reprint. So this is Morbius, Bond of Blood. This cover is phenomenal. I picked this up simply because I don't know enough about Morbius to even talk about him right now. I know that he's the living vampire. I know that he was in a Spider-Man TV show way back in the day in the 90s when I was growing up. I loved the vibe that I got from that character when I was growing up. It was very cool, very interesting. But I want to know more about him before his movie comes out. I don't want to be in the dark about that because I want to make sure that I'm able to kind of say, wow, that's really cool. That's something that I would want to watch. So hopefully you guys get involved in this book and we can kind of read it together. Again, Morbius, Bond of Blood. There are a few other one-shots. Morbius, the Living Vampire, Morbius, Preludes and Nightmares. There is Morbius Epic Collection Volume 1 and Morbius, the Living Vampire Omnibus for you to check out. So, as with any book, I'm going into it completely open-minded. It will definitely be interesting to read. And here's my mail call. So, I actually picked up some pretty cool books this week. So, first things first, the first set of books that I picked up were actually for my wife. They were a Valentine's Day gift, in addition to some other stuff I got for her. Part of an auction that the amazing and wonderful Rhinos Comics did not too long ago, a few weeks ago actually. They usually do one every month, but with no Super Bowl not last Sunday, but the Sunday before, Chet decided, let's do a amazing auction. So one of our local sellingcomics.com decided he was going to put some comics in there, and I picked them up. So first one is Catwoman number 5, the variant cover. These are all Art Gem covers. Just an absolutely beautiful cover. It's very interesting the way that she's kind of inside Batman's head, mask, whatever you want to call that, and the way that it's kind of wrapped around her own face. Awesome issue, or awesome cover, I should say. Next up, I'm not going to do that one next. I want to do this one. Another Catwoman cover. So Catwoman number 1, another variant, Art Gem variant. So another really cool cover. All of these books are super hot right now. Art Gem covers are really cool. One of the things that have always captured me about his covers is the way that he is able to, the way that the signature is written on them. It's really interesting and really cool. You can kind of see it in this one, right in the shadow there. Not sure if you'll be able to see it on here. There you go. That cover, or that signature, is just, I love it. It's a signature. I mean, I know that sounds really stupid to say, but at the same time, it is what it is, I guess. And what I mean by that, and I guess you guys kind of know what I mean by that, but what I truly mean by that is it's one of those signatures that you can tell from a mile away. It's one of those ones that you look for when you're looking for variant work, because Art Gem is just phenomenal. I'm not sure who that person is. I just love the work. I've never really done research on it. This is Black Cat number 1. Another beautiful cover. Black Cat is one of my wife's favorite comic books right now. She's been reading them nonstop for quite some time. All of these are in very fine to near mint, 9.0s and higher. This is Wonder Woman 65, the Art Gem variant. And again, just phenomenal. This cover is another one that's absolutely gorgeous. It is Return of the Valkyries, #1, the variant edition. Just an absolutely BA cover. You can see the pain on her face, but also just the anger, the hatred, how much she just wants to rip off someone's head. And I mean, again, the faces on these books are so well done. It's phenomenal to see great artwork within some really great stories, to say the least. Then I have 2 mail calls. So those were kind of mail calls in a way. Sorry, my AirPods are not connected to my iPad. They're connected to my phone and then the computer upstairs. So I didn't have time or feel like doing that. I probably should have. I have 2 mail calls. Before I get into those, I do want to show off something that is brand new. So look right up here, and you guys will see our brand new logo. So I went to a buddy of mine and basically said, and he had this awesome idea. He's like, you know those neon signs that they used to have and still kind of have on like comedy clubs? And I said, yeah, I grew up in the 90s. I know neon. I love neon. Neon was the... And I absolutely loved seeing his rendition of the Comics Lounge neon sign. And now I want a neon sign that says that. I want that neon sign to hang over there, like when you're walking into the Comics Lounge. I would love for that to be the case. That would be absolutely amazing. It'd be so cool to have my own neon sign with something that I created to kind of bring people together. And then with something that he created to support our channel. So that is our brand new logo. I actually am also going to be starting a Teespring account. So that way you guys can have that logo on some really cool merchandise. The first thing that is on is wallpaper. It is only $1. 50 cents of it goes to supporting the channel. And when I say supporting the channel, I don't mean supporting me. None of the money goes in my pockets. I'm going to be using that money to do giveaways, do fun stuff that I can kind of give back to the community that is the people who are watching my content. And yes, if you don't want to give, that's fine. If you want that for free, again, that's fine. I'll give that to you for your phone background, free of charge. I honestly don't care. But if you feel the need to support our channel, again, I would love for that too. Also, shameless plug #2 is this awesome plug. So there is a backer board in here. There's a comic book in here. And it's perfect. Yes, there is a backer board. It's actually clear comic boards. You can check them out on Instagram. They have these amazing comic book boards, completely clear, that work perfect for covers like this Spawn local comic shop day variant. Todd McFarlane did a phenomenal job coming up with this variant. I don't know if it was truly just him or someone else, but honestly, right here, I found it once before. I know I can find it again. All of my local comic shops made it onto the back of here. Rhinos Comics being the one that I go to the most. And I did find it once. Someone pointed it out to me and I was able to find it. I don't know why I'm not finding it right now. It's not on the front, but again, all of these names down the side here and on the back here are the local comic shops that did local comic book shop day. And it's amazing to see the comic community being able to support itself and being able to give back to the comic shops that support the love of comics and the readers who love to enjoy comics as much as we do. I mean, we wouldn't have comics the way we do nowadays without this. It was actually very fun to kind of see Spawn and Image Comics do this. It was very cool to get my hands on one of these, obviously because it is a book that comes from my hometown. And this is a book that I haven't read. I've read a few Spawn books over the years. I'm definitely a fan. I like Spawn. I think it's a really cool comic. But honestly, I picked this one up for the cover. It's the second Spawn book that I've picked up for the cover. The first one was the Chadwick Boseman variant. And genuinely, it's just, there it is. Give a quick shout out to Rhinos Comics again. Rhinos, there you go. There is your next shameless plug. Oh, if Chet sees this, he's going to love it. But Clear Comic Boards, check them out on Instagram. Rhinos Comics, check them out on Instagram. And Rad Dad Hulk, check him out on Instagram. Awesome people all around. They are friends of the channel, and we might actually be able to do a live stream this week from a local comic shop. I'm looking into doing that for Wednesday, so stay tuned on that one. I've got 3 watchers right now. So hyped to have you guys. I'm going to take a quick 30-second break before I get into the next part of this, which is the 2 books from my mail call, and then also the spec books for Thor: Love and Thunder. All right, so we are back. No, that was just me checking in on everything, making sure I still had everything pulled up that I needed to, because I wanted to make sure that I give you guys all the right information when we're talking about spec. It's amazing to see these great books kind of in a dollar bin. That's not usually what it is when it comes to spec. And actually, when I went to my local comic shop just to see if they were there, to see if I could get my hands on some for this video, there were none. So it goes to show how these books are hard to find, but also that a lot of people are finding them in the dollar bins because they weren't ones that people thought to keep or that people thought were going to be very expensive one day. But let's do our mail call. So one of my mail calls was Amazing Spider-Man 342. So this was Black Cat, Scorpion, and Spider-Man. And this is actually from the Powerless break. Not break. This was from the Powerless story arc. And it's part 2. So Spider-Man back by the Black Cat, stopping Scorpion from killing Spider-Man. I do my best spec buys out dollar bins. Look at the X-Force one with the $800 Deadpool card. Honestly, like it is amazing how much people miss out on because they don't pay attention and because they're like, oh, I'm buying it for $10. It's got to be worth more than that. or someday it'll be worth more than that, but it won't be. So again, Amazing Spider-Man 342. Pick this one up just because, number one, it wasn't in my collection, and number two, it's one of those books that has my wife's favorite on there. It's got my favorite, and it's a really cool cover. I love the idea of Black Cat and Spider-Man kind of on the same team, and Scorpion was always a really cool villain in my opinion. Always kind of got a bad rap, and never really took off. I would love to see him in this MCU, and I believe that we're going to with a Sinister Six movie. So maybe some Spec. Who knows? This was not in the dollar bin. This was in the $7 bin. But it is I'd say it's a very fine to very fine plus copy. There's a little bit of spine roll. The one staple's a little bit on the front side of it, but that honestly looks like an error in printing based on where they stapled. It's not really on the spine. It's actually, and Legion, if you're still here with us and you want to take a quick look at this right here, it's like actually in that box. I don't think I've ever seen that on a comic. Usually they're on the black behind the box. It might be some spine roll or it might be a printing error. I'm not quite sure on that one. If you're in the comments, let me know, because this one definitely looks a lot further back. It doesn't look like it's spine roll, but it is what it is. Again, just another Spider-Man book to add to my collection. The whole box sitting behind that Venom 27 is all Spider-Man. Just saying. This is another one that I needed to add to my collection, and I'm so glad that I did. I honestly don't know where this book came from. It was sent to me in the mail. It's very interesting to see. I had no idea it was on its way. And it came with a dime. Don't know where that came from. So it says it was $1. It's Amazing Spider-Man 3. Yes, that is Amazing Spider-Man 344. Another amazing Spec book because it is the first appearance of Cletus Cassidy. I don't know where this book came from. I did not buy it. My wife didn't get it for me. I don't know where it came from. So take a look at that. It is in very good shape. I'd say probably about a 9.4, 9.6. The corners are pretty mint. A little bit of roll on the two outside corners. The inside corners look very good. There's a little bit of color break on the cover. But I mean, all in all, it's a book that I'm going to have in my collection for a long time. So it's not going to be one that I grade. It's going to be one to kind of have and hold and see. And I mean, it was amazing to have. I don't know, again, no idea where that came from. It's one of those things where you kind of got to go with it. So now let's start talking some Spec. So, sorry, let me just pull that up. So this is why I take a 30-second break from all this stuff, because my buddy and I were talking about Thor the other day, and I basically sent him a list of stuff to look out for Thor. So with all of that being said, we are going to look at, first, starting off, is Thor 273. Thor 273 is a very interesting comic simply because it could easily play into the whole idea of what Thor Love and Thunder is going to be about. So we know that we're going to see Beta Ray Bill in this, and obviously that comes later on down the line. But the synopsis for Somewhere Over the Rainbow Bridge is Harris Hobbs tells Thor that he's starting to remember Asgard after being caused to forget all those years ago. So Harris Hobbs obviously being a very interesting character in the Thor um, dialogue, he was a reporter that was absolutely obsessed with Thor. And he first met Thor when he was trying to interfere in the hero's battle with the Absorbing Man. He actually helped in Thor's defeat, but that pretty much earned him the God of Thor's respect, and then went on to kidnap Jane Foster in order to discover Thor's secret identity. So this man is kind of important because he took a picture of Thor changing from Donald Blake into Thor, or changing into Donald Blake from Thor. And it was interesting, to say the least. It's one of those books that, again, you can probably find in that dollar bin or even that 50-cent bin. The cover's pretty cool on it. It's a very fun book to have. Another book that I would definitely say is a spec for this, one that I've been hearing is a spec over and over again, simply because of stuff that we're going to see, is X-Men number 9. Don't know too much about that one, so I'm not going to get into that one, but I will keep going back on our Thor talk. So I said Thor 273. We also have Thor 276. And Thor 276 is another fun read. Again, I could not find any of these books, whether they in the dollar, 50-cent, any kind of bin. And it was actually kind of interesting. So in this book, we see Odin, Lady Sif, Balder, Frigga, the Warriors 3, Harris Hobbs again. And obviously, we also see the very first appearance of a different Thor. So Roger Red Norvell played Thor for quite some time back in late 70s, my fault. And this cover has him as Thor. Picking up the hammer in this comic. That would be very interesting, to say the least. I'm hoping to see something along the lines of Donald Blake, Roger Red, Beta Ray Bill, and Jane Foster all picking up the hammer in this. I think that would be really amazing to see. And it's going to be interesting where they take all of that. But again, these are just spec. This is just spec. It could unfold this way. I want to talk more about Thor Love and Thunder. Obviously, being a newfound Thor fan this way, with that book right there being in my collection, one of my favorite books from this run, Thor number 5 from Donny Cates' run of Thor with the Black Winter. I would love to see something along those lines. I think that's way too soon. I think we're nowhere near there yet, but I definitely think Black Winter is coming back. It will be interesting to see where that goes. Then we have Thor number 364. And Thor 364 is a very interesting book because, again, it's not something that we see a lot of in the comics, but this had a lot of first appearances. So we saw Harrowkin impersonating Thor. There were the Frogs of Central Park, all in first appearances in this. Grand Thane made a first appearance. So this is one of those books where it's going to get to the point where you can't find it very well. But Thor basically becomes a frog. So possibly, and on the cover it even says, possibly the most unusual Thor story ever published. So, I mean, we're going to see some pretty weird stuff in Thor Love and Thunder. Again, if any of this comes true, this will be another weird story. So the Asgardians were wondering where Thor is, and he was on Earth, having been transformed into a frog. So there's that. We also, on this list, I'm just going to kind of run through it. Thor 384, Thor 391, Thor 392, and then Thor 408, 432, and 459. So there's some really interesting stuff going on with Thor at this stage of the game. Thor Love and Thunder is definitely going to play a major role in the MCU. It will be interesting to see what goes on with Thor Love and Thunder. And we already know some of the cast. We already know that Jane Foster is going to be picking up the hammer. That was released a long time ago. We know that Gore the God Butcher is going to be involved. So that's important. The other spec book on that, obviously, is going to be the first appearance of Gore the God Butcher, which also means that we have Null in the MCU. So let's break this down. If something exists that's created by someone that creates something else, when that something else is added, what created it also has to exist, if that makes sense. So let me say that one more time. If the beginning piece is here and you have this beginning piece create something else, and then this is used by someone else down the line, this down the line piece had to have been created by what it was always made by. Which, of course, leads me into Christian Bale being Gore the God Butcher, which means that we have Null in the MCU. We have to. There is no possible way that, number one, with Venom being so hot right now, with Null being so hot right now, with Gore the God Butcher being a newer character in the Marvel Universe, I want to say he came out in 2015, 6 years ago. Guys, I think this is a phenomenal time to be alive. This is really fun. And honestly, I'm super hyped. So since we have Gore the God Butcher, that means we have the Necro Sword. So Gore the God Butcher is this piece over here that exists in the MCU that we know is going to exist in the MCU. We know that the Necro Sword, the all black, was created here. Unless the Necro Sword has a brand new beginning, which I don't foresee happening. I don't foresee them telling an origin of that Necro Sword yet. Unless they do and they completely retcon or change something, the person who created it has to exist in the MCU all the way over here. Which, obviously, the person who created the all-black Necro Sword that we see in King in Black, that we see in Gore the God Butcher, that we see in all of these amazing storylines is Null, the symbiote god. So, with Gore the God Butcher being in Love and Thunder, the other book that I would definitely pick up is Venom number 4. Venom number 4 is the first time where Null and Thor battle it out. So again, not as hot of an idea of a spec book, but it is a book that I suggest you start looking into or just go and read. If you don't have the money to pick up the true issue of it, it's not in this one. It is in it's in Null. The book that they came out with that I believe I already put away back in that King in Black box up there. You can read Venom 3 and 4 where Null, one of his, I can't remember what they called it, but it's like a symbiote surrogate is the best way to put it. Basically, Thor battled a version of Null. And that's the first time that we see them go at it. So not only do we now have Gore the God Butcher, we almost have to have Null involved in there. With all that being said, you also have Nebula. So Karen Gillan is coming back to play Nebula in this. We also have Tessa Thompson coming back to play Valkyrie, which was a fan favorite. Dave Bautista is going to be Drax the Destroyer. Lady Sif will be back. Chris Pratt, of course, will be back. this is going to be the cosmic Thor that we've all been wanting. Thor 1 was not cosmic at all. It was very earthbound, almost exactly what we needed to hear an origin of Thor without ruining Thor's origin, even though they didn't do it justice. I think we needed a Thor origin story. I think that it kind of helped for new fans to get drawn back, or new fans to get drawn into Marvel, and old fans to learn about a new character like I did, to the point where I started reading the comics. I love those comics. They are amazing. Then you had Thor 2, which was on the rise because you have the Ether, you have the Dark Elves, and it fell flat on its face. Honestly, truly flat on its face. I mean, this is the Thor 2 we wanted. Just villain after villain after villain that was just going to be a thorn in Thor's side. King of Black has been the Thor 2 that we needed and wanted, and Kate's delivered. But not even going to get into too much of that subject because it wouldn't be worth it. The other thing that we want to see with all of this is pretty much Thor 3, Thor Ragnarok level of cosmic ability, where we see this whole new style of Thor. We see a few different Thors. Again, I don't think we need origin. I think we need... could have gone stronger on the villain. I agree, Legion. They could have definitely gone stronger on the villain. I enjoyed Thor 2 as well when it first came out. Rewatching it, not a huge fan of it. And what do you think will happen with God Butcher's first appearance after the movie comes and goes? I think it will be just like Venom's first, or not Venom, Carnage's first appearance. Right now, you can get a 9.6 for $400, a 9.6 newsstand for about $500. 9.8 newsstands are going for well over $500 right now, and 9.8 regular covers, first prints, are going for $500 and up. I've actually seen some going for $600-$700. I think Gore the God Butcher is not going to get up that high because obviously he's not Carnage level, if that makes sense. But I definitely think that it will start to go up. I think it already has gone up a little bit. That came out in Thor number 6. I think. Correct me if I'm wrong. This is the one reason I love doing this on the iPad. I can research and talk to you guys at the same exact time. Yes, Thor, God of Thunder, Volume 1, Issue 6. We get to see the very first appearance of Gore the God Butcher, main story and in flashback. The unnamed tribe of Gore, Gore's mother, a bunch of other characters involved. The all-black Necro Sword was involved in there. Null's armor was also made the first appearance in that book. The Sky God's wall paintings, the Cave Apple. And this is actually where we also get to see, I believe... Yes. So this is unnamed Null's first appearance only in flashbacks. So honestly, I think this book is going to get super hot. Gore the God Butcher being a newer villain, I don't see it stay up at all or on par with Carnage. I don't think it's going to stay up. I don't think that it's going to get, like I said, as high as Carnage. I don't think that it ever will. But naming the first appearance of characters' armor now. Hey, that Marvel fandom, that's what I found. That's not on me. That's just when it came out. I was looking to see if Null was announced in that thing, and it said items. So Null's appearance made a first appearance, but only in a flashback. You heard it here on the Comics Lounge. Mark, this is why I need you live with me, not just in the comments, bud. But let me look real quick at what is the value currently of Thor, God of Thunder, number 6. So I was actually mistaken. It came out in 2013, not 24 or not 2016 like I thought. Right now, the first appearance is going for about $100 raw. I'm bathing a dog. Dude, keep bathing your dogs. I know you got to do your work. I'm off this week, so that's the only reason I'm doing this right now. Otherwise, I'd be teaching, let's see, it's Monday. I'd be teaching 10 kindergartners. It is what it is, right? Let's see. So a raw is going for 70. Currently, one just sold raw for 160. So it's definitely getting up there to the same level of what a raw is going for Carnage right now. I just saw a few raw books sell at a high grade for 180, 190, 200, and that was 9.4 and up, raw, ungraded. This book is a fine, according to the comments. Color breaks on the spine, an 1/8 inch split on the bottom of the spine. It sold for $160. So will it go up as high as Carnage? Probably. It could. Will it stay up there? I don't think so. Honestly, I think that it's going to be one of those ones where we see it rise and fall just the same way that the first appearance of Black Winter did. But also we're getting a movie on it. I don't think we've had a movie, and correct me if I'm wrong, I don't think we've had a movie where something's came out and the movies come out within the same decade that character was introduced. So I think that's going to be interesting in of itself. I don't think we've ever seen that before. X-Men movies, obviously, they've been around since God only knows when. Spider-Man movies Spider-Man's been around since God only knows when. Miles Morales is one of the very key characters now, and one of the only reasons that he's gotten to the level that he's at is because of his story. I mean, it's an awesome story. There's been a lot surrounding him. It's very cool. Right now, I'm seeing a 9.8 Thor the God Butcher first print, Origin of Gore, first cameo appearance of Null, going for a buy it now of 530. So again, I don't think we're going to get. It could reach Carnage level with a variant. I think that's the other thing that we're not talking about as a comics community. Variants are pulling so much money out of the marketplace right now that you will see a spike in cost and then a drop because of how much they're worth and not worth at the same time. That Venom number 27 is a perfect example of that. That variant was going for 200 at one point as a 9.8. Right now it's down to, I think, 100. I mean, it's just the market is so volatile with these ebbs and flows of what people are into. That Planet Awesome variant, I bought that for $40. CGC'd it because I love the cover. That is currently going for $160 at my local comic shop over there. And if I were to sell it, it'd probably be worth, I'd probably be able to get $100 for it. It's one of those things where I don't think that the God Butcher is going to be this big villain that we're going to see a lot of. I do think that we're going to see a lot of Carnage. I do think that he's going to be a thorn in Venom's side for now and a few years to come. It's going to be very hard to kill him off, the same way that it's been hard to kill him off in the comics. They managed to do it, but I mean, now we have him back as Mary Jane. It's interesting. I mean, we've also seen an appearance of a brand new symbiote. I think that we could definitely see some interesting content coming out of all of this, with symbiotes being involved in the cosmic realm, and with pretty much anything that we're getting in Marvel or DC right now. It's going to be very interesting. We saw Godspeed come out and then appear on TV very quickly, but we didn't see a spike in that book. So it all depends on the character. It all depends on the ability to capture and the ability to be something bigger than just a villain. I honestly believe that Carnage is so much bigger than just a villain, simply because we've seen so much of him. Carnage has been something that's been around for years now. He came out in 92 was Amazing Spider-Man 3, or maybe it was even 91. He's been around for almost 30 years. So we've seen him kind of grow as a character. We've seen him fall as a character. I think until we get some real solid books around Gore the God Butcher, as well as a movie with him as one of the villains, then you'll see that book hit Carnage level books. Then you'll see that book hit a whole new side. But I don't know. It's one of those things where it's all up in the air right now. Based on spec, I would say that you're going to see this reach $600, maybe $700. I don't think that this book will ever go above 1,000. Quote me on that, because if it does, I apologize. Right now I'm looking at one that's got 9 bids on it, 4 days left, going for 200. Let's take a look at what Go Collect says about Thor 6. Go Collect's one of those ones that I go to a lot. It's actually kind of interesting because Go Collect, when it comes to Venom, well, Venom and Carnage, it actually has not gone up in value yet on Go Collect. I've seen many books at 9.4s and 9.6s sell for well over what it says on Go Collect, but the average still just is not there. It's hot right now, but I don't think that when the movie hype dies down, we're going to see it stay there either. I think it will go back down. I think these newsstands are so hot right now, obviously, because they're rare in the 90s. Mark and I were talking about this not too long ago. Sorry, I'm trying to look up Thor God of Thunder 6. And I'll show this to you guys so that way you don't think I'm lying. Currently, the value, the last sale of a 9.8. The last sale of a 9.8, 25 sales recently was in December of 2020 for $375. And just so you can see, that is on Thor God of Thunder number 6. There is a newsstand edition of it. It's a little bit different. The FMV is still pending on it. It's actually kind of interesting because the FMV is actually still pending on Carnage's first appearance as well. And I'll show you that one real quick. Again, I've seen books selling for $400 at the level of a 9.4, 9.6 graded. And it has not updated. It's telling us the last sale was in February of 2021. Doesn't have any updates. And I'm not subscribed on this. If you are, I would love to see what the sales history looks like. So last sale was February 3rd. I believe that it tells you the value if you subscribe. I'm not too concerned because obviously I can go to the eBay app and say, What was Amazing Spider-Man sold for at $361? So if I believe I can filter this to sold books. Maybe not. First printing, 9/8 Carnage label, $905. 31 bids. That's a first print, not a newsstand. It's going to sell for almost. It's got a day left. It could easily go for $950 to $1,000. Again, I think this is going to drop like a rock too. Honestly, I think these people are going to be kicking themselves in a few months when that movie drops, and that's what it is. It's a spec book. It's one of those ones that have been driven up in value, and people are like, yeah, look at that, $900, sweet. That book is worth so much money. It's going to be worth so much more. And then they're going to get it out of the box. They're going to look at it. They're going to put it in their personal collection at $1,000 and realize they could have done the same thing, send it off to CGC themselves, and spent probably $300 on a 9.8. That's just what it is. I'm sorry. I get a little cynical when it comes to this. Obviously, you can never guarantee that a book is a 9.8. You can clean, you can press, you can conserve. I'm not talking restoring, but you can conserve the pages. You can conserve the value. At the end of the day, it's going to be what it's going to be. It's that simple. If I ever get my hands on one, I do want it to have that Carnage label. I don't know if that's more expensive or not. I'm not quite sure. I've never looked into it. But with all of that being said, with everything we've talked about today, I have enjoyed every minute of talking to you guys, every minute of our mail call, every minute of talking about new books that are that I picked up last week. Real quick, before we go, I want to talk about the big books that I am looking forward to coming out on Wednesday. I am very, very excited for quite a few coming out this Wednesday. So we've got some DC books, we've got Marvel books, we've got some independents, and I'm just going to kind of run through what I'm looking forward to. Overall, I do want to pick up the Black Knight facsimile edition. I'm very excited to read that. It's one of those ones that I'm just going to love to read. I'm going to be picking up Black Widow 5 for my wife because she's been enjoying that series. Let's see. Let's keep going down. There's no Future State coming out that I'm really interested in. I will pick up probably Immortal Wonder Woman number 2 just to read it. I did like reading number 1. It was interesting. I'll probably pick up number 2 just to have it in my collection. Since I loved Guardians number 10 so much, I will definitely be picking up Guardians 11. I cannot wait to see what happens to Peter Quill and the team. And I've heard a lot of little rumors about it, which we'll get into on Wednesday. Next up, King of Black number 4 of 5 is coming out tomorrow. No, Wednesday, 2 days from now. I'm hoping that we get to see who the God of Light is. That's what I'm hoping for. I don't want to give any spoilers, but if the God of Light does get revealed and there is spec on him or her, I will be releasing it for you immediately on Wednesday, whether I'm here or at my local comic shop. One that I'm going to pick up just because I'm kind of interested in it is Mighty Morphin. I've heard some really cool things about the past few issues. It's only on issue number 4 right now, so I might kind of dive into that one. Mark, if you're still watching, let me know what you think of me picking that up, if it's worth getting into for someone who watched the shows growing up, loved Power Rangers growing up. I don't want to be disappointed, but I also, if it's not going to be something that I like, I'm not going to get into it. I don't pick up books that I'm not interested in. I only pick up books that I want to read, that I want to keep in my collection. There are some books that I pick up simply because of covers, but genuinely 9 times out of 10, it's a book that I want to keep in my collection. That's why I don't sell very many books. People ask me, are you selling? I typically say no. There are, I did actually do a comparison, which I will also get into Monday. I did the same book, CBCS and CGC, because if you change the book, you can change your opinion on the slab, in my opinion. So that's going to be something we're talking about on Wednesday. Another book that I'm looking forward to is obviously King of Black, Planet of the Symbiotes, number 2 out of 3. Issue number 1 was absolutely amazing. It'll be interesting to see if they continue with Plague and if they continue with everything else that happened in Planet of the Symbiotes, and where they kind of go from there. I also be picking up, of course, the Miles Morales Spider-Man number 23 tie-in to King of Black. I have not picked up MODOK Head Games, but they are in issue 3 of number 4. If you want to get into that one because you like MODOK, it's a very interesting character, very interesting villain. He can also be seen in the Avengers video game. Let's see. Moving on. Savage Avengers number 18 is also another King in Black tie-in that I will be picking up this week. Spider-Woman number 9 will be one that I pick up. I'm not too impressed with where they went with that so far. It's interesting. I've kept my interest. My wife's been loving reading it. But I don't know that I'll continue with it. I can't say yet. It's one of those things where it's very cool, but I don't know. I want to pick up The Last Ronin number 2. I did not pick up Last Ronin number 1. I'm kind of kicking myself for that because I love the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. I have not read any of their comics yet, but I've heard so much good stuff about it. Obviously, at this stage of the game, I'm not getting into it for the value because the value is all in first print, just like it was in Strange Academy, which I also got into too late. But again, I don't look at stuff for the value. I look at stuff for, am I going to enjoy it? When Strange Academy and Last Ronin first came out, it wasn't something that I was like, wow, look at that. I'm going to pick that one up. If I don't feel that way about a book, I don't pick it up. It's that simple. Thor 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I couldn't put those books down. Amazing Spider-Man. When I picked up Amazing Spider-Man number 800, that is the most expensive $15 I have ever spent because that led to all of this and all of this. Then, let's see, moving on. Thor 12 is coming out this week. So excited to see where that's going. It's not going to tie into King in Black, which I'm interested to see how they do that. I want to say that King in Black is happening at a different time than when everything else is going on. Let's see. I've just got a new comment. Whoops. So, Elisa, I hope I'm saying that right. I'm sorry if I'm not. Gore the God Butcher as the villain of Thor, Love, and Thunder. Do you think Thor or Jane dies in this movie? I don't think they're going to kill off Thor. Honestly, I think they have a lot more planned for Thor. I think that he is going to do a lot to push the MCU forward to the next big event. I think that if you kill off 3 original Avengers in the span of 2 movies, you're going to piss off a lot of comic book fans. If we see Thor or Jane die, it will be for a bigger reason. I'm not sure what Chris Hemsworth's contract is for right now. I want to say that he signed a multi-contract deal the last time he re-upped with Marvel. Again, that means little to nothing, genuinely, simply because it's something that's, you could obviously have flashbacks, you could have different things happening. But I think that if you were to kill Thor off right now, it wouldn't play well. It wouldn't be the right time. It wouldn't push the MCU forward the way that it needs to. I think we're going to see a lot more with the cosmic realm, and I think Thor and the Guardians are going to be the main people who are pushing forward into the next part of whether it's Secret Wars or Secret Invasion or whatever they end up doing more of in the future. We're going to see something different. I don't think that we're going to see Thor die. I do like that you're saying, though, that we could see Jane die. So the other part of that is, do you think Jane dies in this movie? Honestly, I could see that happening because she could become Lady Thor. She could die, and she could possibly then be the Valkyrie that she is in the comics right now. I'm not sure how that would play out, but it would be an interesting storyline to play on. Again, I don't know too much about the way that played out in the comics. I didn't read those comics as much as I could have or should have, but if I were to choose one of those characters to die in this movie, I would say it will probably be Jane. Honestly, I think that it's going to be a sacrifice situation where if she doesn't do something, Thor will die, and she loves Thor to the point where she'll sacrifice herself for him, or maybe even sacrifice herself as Thor to become a Valkyrie, if that makes sense. I think there's a million different ways that they could play it. I don't think that they brought her back only to kill her off, but at the same time, since she wasn't in Thor Ragnarok, and since it was always like, oh, where's Jane? What's Jane doing? What's going on with Jane? I think that they might be ready in a way to kill her off. Just kind of use her for this movie as a one-off character and kind of be done with it. Be done with that love scene. But it's interesting. I want to see how they play it. I don't want to make any speculation yet because, one, I don't know enough to say one way or the other. And two, I think that it's not the right time. Again, they could easily do it. They could kill everyone. They could kill Gore. They could kill Thor. They could kill Jane. And Beta Ray Bill could be the new Thor. And Donald Blake could be the new Thor. And it could be so changed. I honestly, I want to see what Marvel does with it. I'm going to sign on for whatever they do to some extent. But I haven't lost my faith in them yet with what they've done with characters. I think everything that they've done up until this point has been perfect. Thanks, Chris. I feel Chris is safe with the MCU. I'm assuming Jane Cancer Story is going to be a huge part of it, but Lady Sif is back, and I want to ship Thor and Sif, in my opinion. I kind of agree. I do like the Lady Sif Thor vibe that we got when Jane was not part of Thor Ragnarok. It kind of seemed interesting. I'm wondering how we're going to see Lady Sif after Thor Ragnarok. And I mean, we basically got to reset from Endgame. That's going to be a whole new ball game for us. We don't know what is happening in the world right now. We don't know the consequences. We don't know the differences. There's so much going on that it will be interesting to say the least. I mean, if we think about it, Thanos jumped ahead from 2014 all the way to 2025. Everything that he did from that time to this time never happened. So if you go off of that, there's a lot of stuff in there that tied into the Infinity Stones that he just changed. I don't know. It's going to be interesting the way that they play it with such a big time jump and with such a big possible reset from the fact that they never battled Thanos in Wakanda. I mean, let's focus on that. That battle now never took place technically. Do they still remember it? Probably, because they're still part of that timeline. But Thanos never went to Wakanda anymore because he jumped straight from one time to the other. Time travel's weird. The way that they play it's going to be the way they play it, and I'm very interested to find out more and to research more about it. I think that it's going to be totally different from what we've seen with anything. Getting back to what I'm looking forward to this week, obviously there's an X-Men Legends book out. I want to see what that's all about before I pick it up. The older X-Men books, we talked about this with Mark yesterday, were interesting. They were good. They were great even, especially when Jim Lee, I believe, Jim Lee, correct me if I'm wrong on that one. I want to say I'm saying the right name. Just had a total brain fart. I believe that is who we wanted as, or sorry, let me start over. I believe the X-Men Legends and the X-Men that we're currently getting are not the X-Men that we want to see. We need an X-Men reset. We need something to change within the X-Men to bring about a new style for them and kind of something different, because what we've been getting just isn't what we want to see out of them. And I don't know, with the X-Men coming back to the MCU, coming back to Disney, coming back to Marvel, I'm hoping that Marvel starts putting more into that and we stop seeing so much saturation in X-Men. I mean, literally every book that I've got has some sort of X-Men vibe to it. Sword has an X in their O. Like, let's just go there. This is the book I was talking about earlier. I did not put it in the King in Black book box yet. This book has Venom 3, 4, as well as another couple of key issues that talk about Null. But anyways, that's pretty much all I have to talk about today with you guys. I loved lounging with everyone that joined us. Thank you, Elijah. Thank you, Legion. Thank you, Cray Cray, for comics. It was a pleasure to talk with you, all of you who are able to join us live. If you are catching this on the back end and you did not get to see the live, I wish you all the best whenever you're watching this. And as always, thanks for lounging with us. Have a great day.